tyranny disguised in the name of liberty by people who have to lie because they can't stand to actually debate the issues that they're engaged in. So that's where we are. This is a big deal. This may be as significant an election as any you have been through in your lifetime because the choice is so radical. On the one hand, you have a totally corrupt, dishonest representation of a rigged system with a rigged economy and a rigged structure. On the other side, you have the most brand new, non-politician, outside-the-box, entrepreneurial business person. On one side, you have every element of the corrupt left coming together because they're in grave danger of losing the gravy train if she loses, and they will prop her up and try to carry her to office no matter what because they desperately need the money. On the other side, you have a rapidly growing citizen movement that is sick of the corruption, sick of the dishonesty, sick of the lies, sick of the political correctness, and sick of being told that they can't do anything about it, and so they're going to go out and vote to do something about it. And I think that's the choice. And Georgia is a key battleground in this fight. We have an obligation to go out to all of our fellow citizens to communicate across the whole state how big the gap is. You believe in the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, you have to be for Trump. You believe in a Supreme Court which obeys the law, you have to be for Trump. You believe in an economy based on hard work and on people being able to go out into small businesses and create jobs, you have to be for Trump. You believe in rethinking the national security issues which are currently troubling this country, you have to be for Trump. You go down the list. And so we have to make sure, and one of the reasons I was so thrilled to have a chance to talk with all of you and then with our friends in the media, is we have to make sure that every Georgian understands how really serious the choice is, and there are only two choices. There's a radical, left-wing, anti-Second Amendment, anti-religious liberty Supreme Court with Hillary Clinton. There's a huge tax, big government, big corruption, big union future with Hillary Clinton. There is a submerge America in global institutions with Hillary Clinton. And so if you don't want that future, your only realistic choice is Donald Trump. We've been very tolerant, and I think we have a couple of microphones, so we'll give people a chance to ask questions. And okay, where are the microphones?
I have a concern, not that we aren't going to get out there and vote for Trump, but what's going to happen to the electoral ballots under the Soros-controlled electronic voting machines, and how do we prevent that from happening?
It's a very good, very realistic question. I think voter fraud is a much bigger issue in this country than the media wants to cover. I think we have to have, and my good friend Randy Evans, from right here in Georgia, is leading an effort. We have to have, frankly, volunteer attorneys at every precinct in the whole country, and they have to prepare the rules immediately that day. Any questions? Yes, sir.
I'm black, Muslim, and from Detroit, and my question is, how do you plan to get black and minority voters to step up, as well as fix inner city problems?
Okay, I think that's a great question. I think what Trump's hope is, starting both with what he said in Milwaukee and what he said last week in Detroit, is that by laying out a program, for example, allowing people to choose whether or not to send their children to a school that's failing, or to send them to a school that might succeed, bringing in the kind of policing that both Sheriff Clark and Rudy Giuliani stand for to save lives. I think you're going to see Trump also have some ideas of enterprise zones to create very dramatic opportunities in the inner city, and frankly, to also take all the government assets. If you look at the number of houses that HUD owns that are abandoned in Detroit, they are an impediment to fixing Detroit. And you look at the level of red tape. So I think his whole goal is going to be very practical and to reach out to people like you and to say, look, We can do better in jobs, we can do better in education, we can do better in safety. Isn't it worth taking a risk when you look at the worst neighborhoods of Detroit? As he said the other day, if you live in the worst neighborhood in Detroit or Chicago or Milwaukee or Baltimore, aren't you better off at least gambling that we could create a better future together? And I think the minute you get a significant number, not a giant number, but a significant number of people like you, younger African Americans who stand up and say, I think it's time to take a chance. I think you'll see a flood tide because they have worked desperately hard to oppress people and say you're not allowed to be for Trump, you're not allowed to say this, you're not allowed to think this. And I think once that starts to happen, it will be shocking how many people come out, both in African American neighborhoods, but also, frankly, with Latinos and with Asian Americans. People want jobs, people want dignity, people want a sense of a better future. And so I think he will work very hard at that.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to say thank you for coming here, first of all. My question would be, one of the main points that Secretary Clinton is running on is to make college affordable. So I was wondering, as a college student, what does Mr. Trump plan to do to make college affordable for everyone?
Well, I think there'll be a number of steps, but let me say, the first step I would take would be to radically cut all federal red tape and regulation. You walk around this campus, there are an awful lot of people who don't have anything to do with students who are sitting around in offices filling out papers for the federal government and state government. I go every couple of years to the College of the Ozarks. College of the Ozarks is a work-study college. You cannot apply unless you need federal aid. They have no federal aid. Everybody there works 20 hours a week during the school year. They work 40 hours a week in the summer. The 20 hours a week in the school year pay for the tuition and the books, and the summer pays for the cost of living year-round. 93% of the students graduate owing zero. 7% graduate because they bought a car their senior year. Now, it's a totally different model, and some of you who are students will find it to be sort of horrifying. It actually means having a job, and that means showing up regularly. And it's a very frugal college. So when first time I went out there, I show up at the president's office, there's one secretary. So I like to walk around the university system and see how many secretaries there are between you and the president, and how many assistant deans and associate deans and vice presidents. And you got out a hiring list. You put up a hiring chart in the university system and said, let's circle the ones who actually touch students. I'll bet you it's a minority. But the total number of people. Now, part of this, students also will tell you, well, I really like this extra nice new dorm, and I really like the fact that I only take 1 or 2 classes. I understood why Bernie Sanders was doing well on campuses. He had a campaign theme that was simple. I'm going to legalize marijuana, make college free, and you'll be happy for the 23 years it takes to graduate. You look at the number of campuses, I'm not talking about Kennesaw, I don't know the details. You look at the number of campuses where they do not schedule the class you need to graduate. And so you literally spend an extra year waiting for the class you graduate. That is irresponsible on the part of the administration and increases the cost to students for no reason. Right there. Okay, got it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is, why don't the Clinton scandals seem to stick? And why did the Justice Department let her off about the email scandal, the Clinton Foundation scandal, all of these things going way back to Arkansas?
Well, first of all, I do think it was sticking. I mean, you look at the number of people who now think she's a liar, and it's a stunning number for a major party presidential nominee, and it's getting higher. I've actually gotten, as I've looked, as more stuff has come out, I've gotten more unhappy with the director of the FBI. And I'll tell you why. Initially, I thought he had a reasonably rational strategy of saying, We're not going to take her through a jury trial at the edge of an election with you, the American people, of the jury. Let me share with you what we've learned. Makes sense. Then you discover that there is a direct timeline between issuing subpoenas and destroying not the one device she claimed, 13 devices. Let me tell you, any normal American who destroyed 13 devices after the subpoena was issued would promptly go to jail. This is obstruction of justice. Furthermore, I'm amazed at the people who did it. And remember, she's not out there with a hammer herself. Although who knows, but I don't think so. So imagine, in any healthy environment, the people who are executing those instructions would also go to jail. Instead, at least 2 of them have been offered immunity. Now, all I want to know is, what did they get? What did the government get for the immunity? It is sure and obvious to me. And I think in that sense that Comey has failed. And I didn't think this at his first press conference, but the more stuff that's come out, the more clear it is that what you have here is a classic case of absolute obstruction of justice. And I just predict to you, there will see more and more articles asking what it was she was hiding in the 33,000 deleted emails, which in itself was obstruction of justice. It was, by the way, in itself a felony because she had promised not to destroy government property. It's astonishing. Okay?
Right here, right here, right here.
Okay. I'm an African American man, and I was wondering, since you said that Donald Trump was a racist, at one of his rallies he said, you're living in poverty, your schools are no good, you have no jobs, 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell else do you have to lose? Okay. My thing is, what have we lost, number one? And what are you going to do to get it back? Since you said, what the hell else do we have to lose?
Right. Well, I think what you're saying, even Americans, neighborhoods in America, and you're in a neighborhood where there are no jobs, and the schools are terrible. And in New York, for example, it takes 66 steps to get rid of a bad teacher. 66, because of the Indian contract. So the principle's clear. You can destroy children's lives, but you can't get rid of the person who's destroying children's lives. I think his point is, if you're in a South Side Chicago neighborhood where people are being shot every weekend, maybe not voting Democrat would be a reasonable risk, and you might try voting Republican for Trump, because at a minimum, he might do better than the current team at keeping you alive. And that's what he's trying to say. And that's why they have to claim he's a racist, because they can't, they're not going to get in a debate about whether or not it's working. The mayor of Chicago is not going to say, oh, the city's really safe. He can't win that debate. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, but he didn't specifically say Chicago. He just said African Americans. But he didn't even say African Americans. He just referenced towards African American, to the group of African Americans. So I mean, it sounds good, but he didn't specifically say that Chicago. He didn't say that Detroit. He didn't say Georgia. He didn't say specific places.
I think that's a fair critique. He did the 2 places he's made the strongest statements were Milwaukee, which is the 6th poorest city in the country, and Detroit, which is a total disaster in terms of large parts of the inner city. So, but I think your point is valid, that he ought to distinguish between those neighborhoods which are so devastated that it's really a reasonable risk to vote for these guys, and places where people may be doing okay, but on the other hand, I suspect most African Americans don't feel very comfortable about what's happening in the poorest neighborhoods in America.
Right here, right here.
Let's see, I think.
Here.
Why? He's over here now. Okay. There you go. We want everybody here to hear you.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all black farmers in the United States, we want to thank you personally for leading the campaign to rewrite the statute of limitations for black farmers so we was allowed to go in court. and to get the justice that we so richly deserve. Unfortunately, as things went by, and in 2008 Farm Bill, when the Republicans wrote it in there that we had a right to go before the administrative law judges and have our cases be heard on the merits. But because of the Obama administration and the oppression that we had suffered under them, we have over 16,000 cases backed up, not allowed to be heard because this administration, the Congressional Black Caucus, said that we was undercover Republicans and that they was not planning on us getting paid because we have supported Trump when they voted against us being paid back in the days. I don't know whether you was the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, I remember that case. You know, she pointed out 2008 would have meant that Pelosi was the head of the House at that time. It was done by a Democratic Congress with a Democratic president, and it's shameful. My boss here tells me two more. How about this young lady right here?
So long in now endorsing the Trump campaign and running, like supporting him running for president, do you feel as though there's a difficult position between, you know, supporting Trump and knowing Hillary for so long, or is that just like a clear choice for you in like the difference in the campaigns, or was it a difficult decision?
Well, it's a good, actually it's a very good question, because I've known Hillary longer than I've known Trump. I mean, I think under normal circumstances, again, I'm a conservative Republican, she's a liberal Democrat at best, and in some ways she's a radical Democrat. But I'll tell you what I'm struck with, because people will come up to me and say, you know, you and Bill got a lot of stuff done, which we did, welfare reform, balance the federal budget, a lot of other stuff. But something happened after he left office. I mean, I had no evidence, and we spent a lot of time together. You can't balance, you know, you can't negotiate a balanced budget for the entire federal government unless you spend days and days and days talking. And since he and I both are talkers, you could imagine it was like a graduate school seminar, you know, sort of policy wonks comparing ideas. And he is much more conservative than she is. And you can see this if you look at their issues. There's a video that was put out of me and Speaker of the House sitting behind Clinton at the first State of the Union after I was sworn in January of '95, in which he has a whole thing on immigration that sounds like it could be Trump. I mean, so it's important to remember he was much more conservative. So I probably would have been fun. But this is what struck me, because somebody asked about it. Something went sour after they left the White House. And if you had said to me way back then, do I think Bill Clinton would become so money hungry that he'd run around the planet taking the amount of money he took from the kind of people he took it from, and we get the kind of scale of money, the amount of money they've made makes it almost impossible to defend the idea that they understand or care about anybody who's normal. Because they've gone out all over the place, you know, scarfing up funds from really some very despicable people. And it didn't seem to matter as long as they came with a check. So something went wrong back then, and I think that, so for me it was very easy. I believe Hillary Clinton would be extraordinarily dangerous to the survival of what we know as the rule of law in this country, because I think she is endlessly corrupt, and I think that bringing Bill back into the White House, given this situation, is unbelievable.
To know from you if you're confident you are going to serve in Trump.
I'll put it to you this way. I think it is reasonable to say that I will have dramatically more influence in a Trump administration than I would in a Clinton administration. And I promise you, I will use that influence for the cause of conservatism and a better America. And I think I have a few minutes to shake hands and things. So can I just say thank you to all of you for being here. And remember, email, Facebook, Twitter, go out and get all of your friends engaged. Thank you.